So if you're working a job like most of us are, and maybe doing some real estate, you're flipping, or you're saving for the next rental, some other entrepreneurial venture, and you're still not financial free, then this video is gonna hit home because I'm gonna talk about my backstory and how I lost millions chasing the wrong strategies in my pursuit of financial freedom. How I got into the restaurant business, how I lost. Basically, I had a software IPO, lost everything, got into apartments and flipping houses. And I did so many different things. Like I'm literally the crash test dummy of financial freedom. And so because of that, there's so many things to learn from my experience, and you might resonate with that. And so we're going to start really we're going to start with your freedom number, because again, that's what we need to whack from your job. And then I'm going to reverse engineer it using a little bit of my story, because I've tried things that worked and many that didn't, some that were good, or some people that were not, but a lot of lessons in there as well. So in this video, I'm going to tell you more about myself, but also the important lessons that I've learned that we can hopefully avoid here together in this training. So now we've talked about kind of what it means to you personally. You got to be very clear about that, right? Because we're really driven by our gut and by feelings. How we feel, right? We're talking about stress and options and what it means to be personally. But from a practical matter, it is a practical matter. It's a matter of money and finance, right? So this, I call this the freedom number. The freedom number is the amount of money you would need to make from real estate to quit whatever you're doing right now. Now, there are different versions of the freedom number. One version is where you can buy planes and boats and vacation homes, okay? But it's not, that's a great goal for down the road, but I'm talking about the first phase of the freedom number. I'm talking about the minimal amount of money you need coming in for you to want to quit your job. Now, so what I'm saying is that let's say you're normally spending $10,000 a month, and that includes all kinds of stuff that you could probably do without. You could probably, if you probably had $7,500 coming in, you could probably quit whatever you're doing, right? So what is that number for you? What is that minimal number that you would need to quit your job? The minimal number. We want to get ready. We want to get clear on that, because we need a target. We need to actually target. Again, the number itself is not a very strong motivator, right? It's because it's a number. It has to mean something for you and your family, but it does give us a target. So my journey to financial freedom started with this purple book, as for many of you, because it's a great book, right? It puts these crazy ideas of passive income and financial independence into your brain, right? Well, it's a great book. It really is. But in my case, it ruined my life. Like, it really ruined my life. It was awful, because it made me quit my job and then lose everything. Okay, so this is how it started. I was a company in 97. I joined this company called Web Methods. And this is me in 98, a year later, at a tech conference in Palo Alto. This is a software company, right? And I joined as a programmer because I actually have a software background. I'm highly educated. I have a master's in computer and software. Okay, so I was a third employee of this company. It was a startup. We worked out of the CEO's townhouse for like the first several months I was there. Now, fast forward to February of 2000. This is me and the leadership team on the Morgan Stanley trading floor. We just gone public. And the reason we're all clapping is because Morgan Stanley priced the stock at $35 that morning, and it closed at above $200 at the end of the day. So we were all instant internet gazillionaires, okay? At least on paper. Now, I say on paper because no one could sell for 6 months. You're locked up. And literally the next day, the internet bubble burst. I mean, you can look it up. You can look at Web Methods IPO. At the time, it was like the biggest IPO in world history, right? But so by the time I could sell something, I was no longer a gazillionaire, but it did put a bunch of money in my pocket, and life was good. I kind of felt a little bit like a genius. But then everyday life kind of took over. And this is not actually me, but it's a picture of what it looked like. Because back then, you actually had to sit in cubicles, and there's no rooms because these software companies are running lean, et cetera, like that. And so this company got pretty big. We had 1,300 people, and we had offices worldwide. I had a manager I had to report to, and he was just stifling my entrepreneurial spirit. And there was rules to follow, and reports to file, and office politics became a thing, like random chit chat and people wasting your time. I was no longer enjoying my job. It was not the startup that I started. And I just felt like I couldn't achieve my full potential in this company I loved, and I felt I was destined for some kind of greatness, right? Is this was me? So does anybody relate to this kind of being of whatever you're doing right now just does not light you up? And the idea of doing this for another 10, 15, 20 years kind of gets you down. Now, I thought about joining another startup, okay? Because that's what everybody else did. But I knew that I was going to have to work 60 plus hours for the next 5 years. And who knows where most startups never get anywhere. They're not even purchased. They just simply go bankrupt. Now, I wasn't afraid to work hard, but I just turned 30 here, and it occurred to me that I've been working for a decade and that I need to work another 30 years until I retired. And that sounded awful. Like I really felt stuck. Like I didn't know how to get off that track. I saw the track and I just didn't like where it was going, right? And I didn't see a good path forward. Meanwhile, right, I had a young family. My daughter was born in 2002, my son in 2004. And when I was work, I would daydream about traveling specifically. So this is me and my parents and my sister and her husband, and I think it was in Austria in 2004. We did a lot of travel when we could, and this was us in Lake Champlain. I had to dig up all these old photos back from 2005, sailing Lake Champlain, and then we're in the mountains of New Hampshire. And I love that when I was traveling. Like it felt like freedom to me. Like even to this day, freedom to me is my ability to travel, specifically with my family, and just experiencing new experiences. And so, when travel was over, I had to come to the office, and I kind of dreaded that coming back. And then I read this book, right? I picked up the purple book in 2005, and I read it in like 2 days. I couldn't stop reading it. And my first reaction was, I am such an idiot. It's not about how much money I had with Morgan Stanley, but how much passive income I was getting, which at the time was very close to zero. And then so all of a sudden, creating passive income seemed like the way out. If I could cover my living expenses with some kind of passive income, I didn't have to work. If I didn't have to, I could spend more time or all my time with my family, and we could travel a lot. So it took me about 3 months to process this because I was literally in a state of confusion about how much of an idiot I was about finances. And I remember it was some kind of Saturday. It was Saturday morning, and we're all getting ready for breakfast. I'm sitting there like lost in thought, and I had a moment of clarity. Clarity is a big theme with me, right? Clarity, because I think once you become clear, it guides your behavior moving forward. So to me, my strength is getting clarity in myself and others. So I had this moment of clarity, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. And I decided right then and there that I could not be where I was 12 months from that point forward. Like I couldn't continue down this track. I had to do something else. I needed to change something now. So I told my wife I was going to quit my job. She said, "That's interesting, Michael." And then we talked the rest of the morning about financial freedom because I had not really briefed her on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This was a whole new concept with her, right? And so she asked me if I had a plan. I said, well, not really, but I have money in the bank, so it's going to be fine. So I gave my 2 weeks notice, and I learned all that I could about making money, how money works. I traded options for about 1.5 years. I flipped a couple of houses. I took a commercial real estate seminar, and I actually started looking at some apartment buildings in Texas at the time, and I was in Northern Virginia. But my big idea, my path to financial freedom was to get into the restaurant franchise business. I know you would have done the same thing in my shoes, and I went all in, right? Bought a 10-unit franchise, hired a guy to run it all. The guy's in the middle, his name is Chris. And so in 2006, I opened my first pizza restaurant, and it was actually Alexandria, Virginia. I won't say the concept. And in 2008, 2 years later, I had 6 locations. I built some, I bought some, until, of course, the recession hit. Now I'll make a very, very long and painful story very short. I subsequently lost my IPO millions in the great restaurant experiment. I lost all of my cash and added another $200,000 in debt on top of that. Now, it got very bad. I remember meeting with Chris, the guy with the white shirt who was running all my restaurants, at the Panera next door. Hopefully, I'm not giving it away now. And my credit card got declined because I had a $30,000 balance on it, and I maxed out the card. So at this time, the stress was enormous. And I needed some other source of income because the restaurants were losing money. And so I flipped a couple of houses in 2006 as one of the other many things I did to learn how money was done, and it was really cool. So in 2009, I decided to really scale that. So I was borrowing money from hard money lenders and private individuals, and over the next several years, I flipped 36 houses. Super cool. So I'm losing money on the restaurants, and I'm making money on the house flips. So I'm driving to the house flip, and each of these restaurants are an hour away from where I was. So I'm 2 hours in the car, and I'm working like 80 hours a week. And I'm making like zero money. I'm losing money on the restaurants, making money on flips every 6 months. And I created my own like entrepreneurial nightmare. I created another track, and I couldn't seem to get out of it. And then I discovered flipping houses wasn't very passive either. They were a ton of work. If I'm not buying, fixing, or selling houses, I wasn't making money, right? And when I sell it, there's no residual, and that is not passive income. So it was really frustrating to me. Then my big idea was, well, maybe I should stop selling and flipping the houses and just start building a rental portfolio. And that way I could build passive income from the cash flow. Well, instead of doing that, I actually did some light math. And I said, gosh, if I want $10,000 of passive income, And if I get each rental to cash flow $200 a month, which is a big if you have a rental, you probably know it's a big if. You got some kind of repair or the tenant moves out, it kind of crushes your cash flow for the year. But let's say I could. I would need 50 rentals. 50. And I just got done spending 3 years flipping 3 dozen houses. It would take me 5 years to accumulate 50. Then I'd figure out how to finance the whole thing and manage the whole thing. The whole thing is a nightmare, right? So I had a big problem with real estate investing. I got very angry, okay, because I couldn't figure out how to make this thing work in a way that scales. How do I scale my flips, right? It was too much work and not passive. And how do I scale my rentals? I needed 50 houses, right? I needed a lot of houses. And then even if I did that with much work, it would be a kind of a nightmare to manage the whole thing. And then I discovered the solution with many things. Well, hopefully we'll be more intentional here in this training by accident, right? This was my first apartment building I ever bought. It was in 2011. And I got it one from my house flipper wholesalers. It was on the MLS. And he said, "Hey, what about this building?" I said, "I'll take a look at it." I dusted off my analysis spreadsheets from 2006 in my course, and I started to take a look at it. And and I took a swing at it. And the deal was a nightmare. All right, we'll maybe save that for later. The deal was a nightmare specifically because for the point I'm going to make tomorrow is you can't take your single family house investing in a later training. You can't take your single family house investing mindset and tactics and apply it to something like commercial real estate. So I just did that, and I figured I could do it myself. So I made all kinds of mistakes. I bought in the wrong market. I hired the wrong property manager, and then I had a professional tenant who wasn't paying rent and sued me every other month. It was a complete nightmare. But the point I was trying to make, okay, after about 18 months, things finally calmed down, and then the property started sending me $1,500 per month in mailbox money. That was the point I'm trying to make. We'll get back to the nightmare part maybe later on. There's so many lessons in this deal, but the lesson for now is it started sending me a significant amount of mailbox money, $1,500 a month. And that's when the light bulb went off, because I'm a slow learner, and I realized that this could be the solution to my inability to scale with real estate. I could generate $10,000 or more per month, not with 50 properties, but with just maybe a handful. And so that's why I'm excited to share with you this strategy with you today, because multifamily is the ultimate wealth builder, better than any single family house strategy that like flipping or long-term or short-term rentals or the BRRRR method, better than any franchise or any other business opportunity you might be considering. So fundamentally, okay, multifamily, I do believe, is the ultimate wealth builder because it's the most scalable strategy, the best vehicle to replace my income faster than any other real estate strategy. And I can do that without having to work more. So scalable to me, in my mind, means that the numbers are meaningful from a numbers perspective, but I don't have to work harder in order to get there, right? So if you're frustrated with flipping or rentals or any kind of short-term single family house strategy, there's a reason, because they don't scale. I know, because I spent years trying to force it to work, and it almost ruined me. And I've watched many, many people over the years try to do the same. And then a small apartment deal changed everything. That deal gave me $1,500 a month in true passive income. And I realized I could finally I had a vehicle now to hit my freedom number with just a few of these. I didn't need 50 properties. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to scale much faster using a strategy called syndication. Now, even if you know a little bit what it is, I'm going to kind of go deep on the structure, on how these things work, how they're structured, how the general partners actually make money. And this is really how our students can go from zero to financially free so fast in 1 to 2 years. And you don't need a bunch of experience or a bunch of money to do it as well, because syndications are that powerful. So if you already know you don't want to figure this out alone, then book a call with our team. That's what we do. We help people get their first deal done the right way, and we do it really, really fast. So, but either way, don't stop now. Watch that next video.